Hello and welcome to the Performers Who Pivot podcast, brought to you by your host Grace Francis. This podcast is for actors and performers who are navigating two careers at the same time. Maybe one performing arts career and one business to fall back on, or a business to have alongside your performing arts career, or perhaps you want to leave the performing arts industry altogether but don't want to retrain, so you are exploring how to progress using the skills you already have. Today's episode is sponsored by Dramed. Yes, that's my very own company sponsoring this episode. Welcome to today's episode of the Performers Who Pivot podcast. Today I have the absolute pleasure of introducing Uche Abuah, a talented Nigerian-British actor and producer hailing from London. Uche's journey into the world of acting began at the renowned Identity Drama School in 2009, where she honed her craft and embarked on a path to professional success. Throughout her career so far, she's earned accolades for her performances on both stage and screen. From her standout role as Uche in the theatrical production Another Biafra, to her portrayal of the title character in the award-winning film Mona. Uche has consistently captivated audiences with her depth and versatility. And how I came to know her, I had a friend from my youth theatre company, which is now her husband. I first saw her on stage probably around 2009, 2010. And she's just been a trailblazer ever since I've been following her journey. I now call her a friend. So yeah, I'm really excited for you to get to meet her. Please check out her bio in the show notes to find out more. But without further ado, we will start our conversation. A little disclaimer, the sound to begin with is not great, but it does get better. I first came across Uche, we kind of crossed paths at Identity Drama School, where I trained as well. And I went to go and see her husband, Honora, in a play that he wrote, did he not?
Yeah, he wrote it.
Produced.
Yeah, when he was Anthony, you knew him before me, actually. So you were working with him before you even knew of me. He was an actor with you. So it's so funny how our lives have just kind of done this, and now we're here.
Absolutely. And so I'd first seen Uche on stage playing a role when I was supporting Anthony, who is Honora now. No, not Honora. He's always been Honora, and we're going to talk about that in the podcast because I just love it. And you wasn't even like you both kind of like had a connection at that point on stage then, and you were married then basically.
That story is that is a podcast in itself. A very quick, in a nutshell, how we met. I'd come back I was working as a banker before I decided to, in New York. I went straight into that after university. And the crash of 2008 happened, the financial crash. And basically everyone, it was kind of last in, first out. And at that point, I hadn't been there long, but I already knew this is not for me. So I moved back to London and decided to go back into performing, which I'd done since I could walk, and went to Identity. And then like literally a month or two into that program, I got an email about this play. And I was like, oh, okay, looks good. I've never done a play in my life. Let me just apply. And whilst that was going on, I was having a spiritual transformation as well. I was like in a really dark place, like didn't know what I was doing with my life. I was like, I've failed, I left banking, I'm kind of in this limbo. And so I'd been journaling loads and about my life. I was like, what do I want to do? It's kind of like writing down what I wanted for my family, like prayers and wishes I wanted for them. And then that evolved into writing about this man. And I was like, who is this person? So I got this journal in January of that year, and I'd been writing every single day. And I'd say from about February, I was writing about this person, like what he'd look like, how he'd treat me, what we would do together. And I didn't even know where this was coming from. And then in May, got the audition, almost didn't get the job because I couldn't make the date he first gave me. And if you know Honora, he doesn't play around. He's like, okay, if you can't make it, it's fine, we'll give it to someone else. Anyway, long story short, they did recalls. I ended up at the recall, and the minute I saw him, my spirit said, that is your husband. No word of a lie. It was an audible voice. And I turned around and there was nobody there. So I was like, this is very strange. But looking back, I now know that was all. Before, I would have said love at first sight is a joke, but I now know that love at first sight comes with, it's not instant. It's there's something that happens before that, before your spirit sights the spirit. There's work. Whether you know you're doing it or not, there is work. So my spirit had been doing the work. And so when I saw him with my physical eyes, our spirits knew, or at least I knew, that was my husband. But I didn't say anything because there were like 3 things that I'd said. I was like, right, if this is who is for me, I told the God in me, I was like, right, you're going to give me 3 different signs. And literally by the 3rd time we met, not even the 3rd date, we didn't even have had any dates by then, but by the 3rd time we'd met, I knew, and we both knew that we were going to be married. So it's crazy, absolutely crazy. So I was playing his wife on stage, and I literally burst into his life as his wife, his partner, his producer. I started working with him from the day we met, because I was helping obviously with the production of his first play. And so it was art imitating life. I played Uwa to Apori, Uwa, who was in the play Another Biafra, which is now published as a book. You can buy it on Amazon. So I played his wife, Uwa, Apori's wife, Uwa, and in preparation for Uwa, I was preparing to be Uche, Onuora's wife, and we were married very soon after, actually, less than 2 years after we met, but like 3 months after we met, we were fully engaged.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's a very long story in a very small nutshell.
I love it. That is a whole podcast in itself.
Literally, like I did tell you a very quick version, but it man, if there's any advert for the casting couch, it's ours.
But you say it's crazy, and I don't know whether I've actually had the conversation with you about me and Noah, but it's very similar. I journaled what I wanted after coming out of a relationship that I wasn't happy with.
Right.
Left that to one side, and then a couple of months later, he kind of came into my life, not just passing on the street, but we had a brief conversation, and I went back into my friend and I sat down and I went, have you ever had a feeling that someone that you're going to meet is going to be your husband? I said, I just met someone outside and I don't know what it is. I just got this feeling that he's going to be my husband. I know it sounds so strange because I know it sounds odd, but I just feel like the man that I just met is going to be my husband. Has that ever happened to you? And it was a really weird moment, and nothing happened until a year later when we started dating. But I knew it. My spirit knew. It's like we'd found each other. So yeah,
chills. I got chills. I've got chills. And this, sorry to cut you, but it's just being a performer, and I know the people who are listening to this would be performing in some way, shape, or form. It's just, we have to use our bodies in every capacity to do what we do. And once you're able to tap into just using that power you have as a performer in every part of your life, it's a phenomenal tool, because we are so sensitive and so sensitive to everything. So I just feel like being a performer, I feel like we feel everything, and sometimes it's a bit overwhelming. But if you can channel that power, you can manifest whatever you want. Literally, whether it's a man, a new car, a new house, children, money, we have that power to do that. And it's amazing. And I'm just so excited to finally be I know I've been doing it for years, but just to be focused on it now and just be right, I'm a performer and I'm owning it.
And I'm going to just touch on that, but just to go back, just to pedal back, when you said we use our bodies as performers, absolutely, but also just being a creative and artist of any kind, part of your strength is being able to let an idea land, so being open for inspiration, for an idea to come to you, and then not let it go, explore it. So
exactly,
that is a part of it. If you let go of those ideas or those inspirations that land in your head, they go off to someone else. So it's capturing those, and why would the principle not apply to
to life.
To life.
Yeah.
So, and then you using that, seeing you use that in life, I can 100% see that is what you are doing. You've always, from me watching you, have always had like a gift for, you know, you're clearly very multi-talented. You not only are a talented actress, a talented dancer, you seem to have nailed it when it comes to business. You know what you're doing with business, and that comes with branding your business, your customer service, making that work. And there's a lot that goes into business itself. And then there is you just seem to have, I can just see that you are creating, and it's like, stay out of Uche's way and just watch her manifest
oh Lord,
that she desires. Like,
oh gosh, yeah.
But let's start.
Thank you.
Can you give
us
a bit of, can you give us a bit of your background, your cultural background, your family dynamics growing up? What does that look like?
So, born in Lagos, Nigeria, to two wonderful parents of Igbo heritage, and I'm the youngest of four, so 3 girls and a boy. And when I was, so I'm the youngest. So by the time I was old enough to walk, they were all out of the house at boarding schools and secondary schools. So I was quite alone a lot as a baby in my house in Lagos. So I would always venture out. And if you're of my age and know Nigeria, like, it takes a village to raise children. So I was able to like wander into neighbors' houses and just be there, you know, and that's actually how I learned. I realized later that's how I learned how to hairdress, because our neighbor was a hairdresser and owned a hairdressing salon in her garage. And I was there every day, just watching, being in the environment, not knowing I was picking up a skill that would feed me and my family, you know, whilst I was doing so many other things in the future. So that was me growing up until I was 6. Then I remember my mum visited Nigeria to come and see. She moved over to the UK with my brother to work as a nurse, midwife, and that was tough for me, because being the youngest, you know, your mum's baby, like, why does she keep leaving me? Not, you know, needs must. I get it now, but at the time I was like, why? You know, mummy's leaving me. But when I was 6, I was very determined that this time she came home, she was not leaving without me. So she had no plans on taking me to the UK that year, but somehow, being the, you know, cantankerous, very determined, strong-willed child I managed to manipulate my mother to take me to the UK. And that's how I came to England, very unplanned, no visa, nothing. My mum found a way to bring me, and I started school here as a 6-year-old. Being a Nigerian 6-year-old, there's a different kind of switched on that you are. I don't know if I've put that correctly, but it might be very similar to growing up in the Caribbean as well. You're expected to be quite mature quite early. So coming to the UK and being quite a mature 6-year-old, it was quite easy to just slot into school here. Everything felt easy to me in terms of schoolwork anyway. So I just knew that, you know, that was the time for me to just shine and just do everything. So I was doing schoolwork, and my mum would always find activities for me, whether it was dance, movement, workshops, acting class. She didn't even know what she was sending me to. She just knew that I had too much energy, and she just wanted to get rid of me and put me somewhere where I was doing something creative. And that's really how I evolved and learned skills that I guess developed skills that I had already been exploring in Nigeria. My parents said I started dancing at the age of 2 in a dance troupe. I actually don't have memories of it, but there is video footage of me dancing with older women. My mum was a dancer as well in the troupe. So yeah, that is really how it all evolved, how it all began.
So I love that when you're explaining the early life, it isn't just focused onto this is how you fell into performing arts. This is just how your creativity was nurtured, and it's clearly very quite broad from early, as I would see it as now.
Yeah.
When did you start to kind of, well, what's your first memory of being a performer or in performing arts or as an actor? First of all, do you consider yourself an actor now or a performer? What's your...
I'm a performer.
Yeah.
100%. Acting is part of, it's a multifaceted Uche. I sing, I dance, I act, and even in my business life, there is a level of performance, because that you can get your hair done anywhere and walk out and be like, yeah, I've had my hair done. But there's something about what I present to my clients at Natural Glow that this is, I'm saying, this is verbatim things that people have said to me. There's a feeling after having their hair done, it feels like they've had some sort of form of therapy, or they've been able to just be free and express themselves. There's a lot of laughter, especially when I'm with clients I've known for a long time, but even new clients. Like, there is a level of performance, because it's not, you don't always feel like it when you're working. You might feel ill, but you do have to put that, your priority is for your clients to leave feeling refreshed, feeling happy, feeling like, okay, I've had a service that I want to have again. So I feel like even in that capacity, I'm a performer. So I guess going back to your question, my first experience would be like I said, I don't even remember it from memory, but I remember it from obviously video footage, seeing myself performing with a bunch, I say about 30 women, like in their 30s and 40s, and I was a 2-year-old leading them out into a stadium, and watching myself is quite, it's like, gosh, wow, this girl, she's 2. She's 2. What an amazing amount of confidence. So I guess that is my first memory of just being on stage and just losing myself in performing, because I didn't care who was there. I didn't even know what it was. All I was told was that I wasn't even told. Apparently I just learnt the routines because I was going with my mum. And so they decided to put me on Front Street, and I went out there and just did my thing. And it was a charity event. They raised the most money they'd ever raised that day. So that is, I guess, my first memory of being put out there. And it felt, looking back, and I could imagine how I felt, like, wow, this is where I belong. I love being the center of attention. I love being on stage, and I love making people happy, making people smile, laugh. And this is me. I'm very much the extrovert.
I love that. And I love that what I find really interesting is that when I've seen you run your business, it seems very separate from performing, just because that's how my brain computes. It's, you run a hairdressing salon, you own a hairdressing salon, and you're a performer, but that's 2 very different things. But we've learnt now that you lend your performing skills to your business.
Yes, definitely, 100%, because you don't always feel like it. Like, you don't always feel like having people in your space, because, you know, we're human and we have emotions and feelings. I might have had a bad morning or stressful, but that doesn't matter. When you've got someone in your chair, it's like, right, okay, time to switch it on and just make sure that you give that person the best experience you can give them, you know. Like some of my clients I might see once a year because they live out of the country, and it's like, okay, who cares? That unless obviously it's life or death situation. But even being a woman, you just might have, you know, come on that day or something on your monthly periods, and it's like, who cares? Yeah. This is their time. You need to lend that time to them, and that's something that, it sounds harsh, but for me, it's business. And I learned that living in the States, the show must go on. Their show must go on. This, who's, you know, your feelings can change. And also it helps me too, because sometimes I might turn up to the salon having had a terrible morning, but your mindset changes because you're having to service someone. By the time I've finished that service, I'm like, okay, I actually feel good now.
Yeah. I relate to that with working with children, because it's the same. Life goes on. You have your ups and downs in life, but and I guess this is true for any customer facing role. especially working with children, I absolutely have to make sure that whatever I'm carrying, if it's not the lightest loving energy, it gets left.
Yes.
And I only enter that space with children when
Mm-hmm.
and I do, and then the children I just end up leaving happy every single time I work with children. There's no,
Yeah.
I could never leave that space feeling worse than what I felt when I before I entered it, which I mentioned
exactly
when I entered it. So
exactly
again, another reason why performing arts, especially in education, this is one thing that I advocate for, is performing arts being in children's curriculum for all the reasons and benefits that it brings. But yeah, those customer facing roles that are necessary, performing arts are brilliant for that, and children have an access to being able to creatively express and build their confidence from a very young age.
Yes, definitely.
So I wonder, that space, we kind of know that you'd started school in the UK around the age of 6, and your mum got you into lots of clubs or spaces where you could develop and express and build on your creativity. We also know that you worked in the United States in banking. What was that bit before that? Because you said you left banking to come back to perform. So how much did your performing arts career progress until you left the UK? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Oh, wow. So I had to, no matter how talented I was, no matter how talented my parents knew I was, there was absolutely no way I could skip the university process and to study. Like, any other Nigerian will know, there are only three things certain in your life. You're born, you go to uni, and you get married. Even dying is uncertain. So something I had to do was to go to university. So even though, being talented, being artistic, I'd always had this plan to go to uni being kind of forced onto me. So I was doing lots of bits. I sang in church, did loads of, did lots more with singing, actually, less of acting at that point. I was actually in a girl group straight out of college. I fell into that, but I still can't even tell you how that even happened. We just sang at our leavers assembly, and 2 days later I get a call from a manager saying, "Oh, I heard you're in a girl group." And literally within 2-3 weeks, we were in Sweden recording a demo album. It was around the same time as the Sugar Babes. So we were in a bidding war with them, and obviously they won and got their record deal. So I'd been doing a lot of singing, carried on with the group for a bit longer, but then it fizzled out. Went to uni, explored uni, didn't do much in the way of performing at uni. And no, that's a lie. I was dancing a lot at uni. The famous Kenrick Sandy of Boy Blue would come to Brunel and teach us how to dance. I went to uni with his now wife. So we did loads of dance oriented things at university. And then after uni, went to America, did no performing at all in the States. It was more focused on, right, now have to be in the serious banking hat. I'm going to be, going to work in this industry. I've got to take it seriously. And so very soon after being there, I knew this was not for me. And that's when my spirit knew, right, you've just got to just throw yourself into performing because the banking crisis happened. And I knew that my boss was trying to find all these ways to get me to, get a job and be secured. But my spirit was not eager for it. I knew that I needed to come back to the UK and focus on a career in performing, whether that be singing, dancing, acting. I knew I had to come back. So when I did, I went straight to Identity. I found out about this performing arts school for Black people. I was like, yeah, this is where I should be. And that's where it really kicked off for me, I think, when I focused and started meeting people that were like me, who had a background like mine, who were Nigerian, but, they were serious actors, they were serious performers, and people who, didn't play games with that. They were preparing themselves, reading, exercising, all these things. And it was nice to see that, because I had never known that. Everyone I'd known before that from my background did it as for fun. So that's when I really started paying attention. Met Femi Oguns, who owns Identity, who was even for that short period really encouraged me and pushed me, like, look, you're good, you're really good, focus on it, push yourself. And not long after I started, I met Honora, who was just, you know, trailblazing, and just so, he inspires me so much, because even at such a young age, he was 26 at the time, he was just so serious. He's like, right, got this play, everything is always professional with him, and it has been from the day we met. So much so that when I was emailing about the job, I thought I was talking to a company. I didn't know that it was one guy. You know, he was so professional. Everything was done so well, like audition process. I was like, right, take this seriously. But so, yeah, I really believe that's where my acting became a focus for me. At least in my mind, even though I went, I went down the road of having kids, getting married and stuff for the 10-year period. That was when it was like, right, this is what you are. You know.
Definitely. And again, that can lead us into a whole another podcast conversation, navigating motherhood and marriage whilst nurturing a business and a career. So
it's a lot.
I think, like, so can you just tell us where you studied, what you studied actually, and also what part of London did you, like, where are you, what's your home base in the UK?
I went to Brunel University. I hail from Hammersmith, West London. So for those who know, Bush, Goldort Road, Uxbridge Road, them sides. And so, yeah, my university was Brunel. I studied psychology, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And I really believe it still is a big part of what I do.
Gosh, yeah, I remember like being 7 years old and looking in the mirror, and once I'd understood or learned what a psychologist was, I remember looking in the mirror and thinking, I either want to be a psychologist or an actor. And I think that was because of my just interest in human beings and the way people responded and reacted. I just found that so fascinating, and I still do.
Honestly, it was the best decision I made, and I'm glad. Because when I was going to uni, I was like, I'm not academic. What can I do? And I remember just saying, all right, whatever I get the best grade in at A levels. I did English language and literature, even though I hated reading, but somehow I was good at it. And I did psychology. And I said, whatever I get a good grade in, I'll just go to uni for that. And the A level for psychology was really tough, actually. It's actually tougher than uni in my opinion. So it was a coin cost. My words. It was a coin toss, but I'm glad it landed on psychology, because I use it majorly in everything I do, even in the home, at work, on the salon floor, but even in acting and understanding myself, understanding people, the dynamics, how to change. You can change the energy in a room if you know how to work it, and when you can understand where other people are as well as yourself, it's such a powerful tool to have. Honestly, it's something I still read around today.
And I find it just so interesting that, so just for any listeners, so our paths have crossed a few times. I can't remember the point where I learned that, number one, you went to Identity, because although we'd crossed paths in Identity, and I do feel like we probably had spoken or engaged or seen each other in that space, we never really got into a conversation until I turned up at your salon one day. Remember what I was doing? I was going to do a role in a short comedy starring Chizzy. And she was on Strictly at one point, but Chizzy, friends from ID, and I'd come to you, I think, to get my hair done, or maybe it was Rashida was in the salon doing nails.
Right.
I was getting my hair done. And then we'd had the conversation, and then I can't remember where the penny dropped that I'd learned that you was the wife of Honora.
Right. Yeah.
was in a theatre company with back in my college days.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, everything you say about his level of commitment and seriousness like completely rings true. He was very serious, didn't want to mess about, whereas a lot of us in the theatre company was having a good time, as well as making an amazing theatre piece that was just, I'm so glad that we'd done that back then. It was about Eluda Equiano.
Yes.
And it was a play to mark the bicentenary of the abolition of the transatlantic slave trade in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, where was that point that we'd kind of like
all clicked? Yeah. It is because it's a long time that in between, because you did come to see another Biafra, but we didn't get to talk or anything.
No.
I think it was at the salon, and you wouldn't have known it was me that owned the salon either. So it was so crazy when it all just finally clicked, because it's all like 10, 12 years later. You're like, whoa, this is so crazy.
Little points, and you were everything I was looking for. Your salon being in my local neighborhood, being a specialist in curly hair, because I became your client after that, and we'd got into more conversations after that. And did you do the Olympics? Did you do anything around the Olympics that was in the UK?
I didn't. No, I didn't.
I was probably performing or just finished doing the 2012 dancing, the 2012 Olympics. Then I don't know why I thought that you did, but anyway, I digress. Who was your inspirations? Who was your inspirations as a performer growing up?
So growing up, massively, like I said, I did much more in the way of singing when I was much younger. Mm-hmm. So I am and still am inspired by her. I'm inspired massively by Lauryn Hill. She's not just a singer; she's a deep thinker. People say, "Oh gosh, Uche, you think a lot." I'm like, maybe it's that you just don't think enough. And I feel like Lauren she's like me, I guess. Like her lyrics are so well thought out, and I would sing those lyrics even as a 12, 13-year-old and think, wow, like even now I'm finding things that I was singing as a 12, 13-year-old didn't understand then. I'm like, whoa, Lauren, that's why that album is so timeless, because it's like you're digging, it's like a novel.
Yeah, like
you just find, yes, it's honestly that. So she inspired me heavily, massively. And then there was Marisha Brandy. Then she's a singer and actress. I was like, whoa! So I'm listening to her music and watching her TV show alongside each other. I was like, wow, she's just such a massive inspiration. So those are two major players for me. I wasn't even really into movies at all then. It was much later, obviously, when I decided, yes, I'm an actor, this is what I want to do. And that is much later in life, when I came back from the States. I was like, wow, started watching movies and understanding shows, and how people, can come out of their bodies to become a character. It's so, I can definitely say solidly Lauryn Hill and Marisha Brandy were the first people that really were brought to my attention when it comes to performance. They inspired me hugely, and there's so much. I have too many to even reel off now, but those two were very instrumental to who I am now.
I'd love to just first of all just say that when you said that you went to uni, I definitely thought that what you said you studied was business, but it wasn't business.
No.
So you went into banking, not psychology, after you've done psychology at university, and you've come back and you realised that you had a love for performing that you wanted to pursue, but you started at the same time a hair salon because you had the gift of doing hair.
Yeah.
You turn, because some people, I know loads of people who have a career on the side or want to do something else, but they're good at doing hair, so they do hair from their living room. You don't do hair from your living room. You had a fully fledged salon that you had to be the boss of, and
I did have a stint, and that's actually how I'd been doing hair since I was So that's something I have to go back for. Once I came here as a 6-year-old and saw that there was no one, my mum wasn't really a hair person. There was me and my sisters walking around looking raggedy. So I just took it upon myself as a young 6-year-old to start braiding my own hair from what I'd learned from the shop floor as a 2-year-old in my neighbor's salon. I started in small braids here and there myself. And then my sister's hair started doing their hair as well. And then as a 10-year-old, I was fully in business. All the kids in my school, I was going home after school. I'd have a client every day, going home to all my friends' homes, would be getting paid £10 per head. Anybody who knows about Igbo people, Nigerian Igbo people are very business minded. They call us the Jews of Nigeria. I don't know the link, but we're very like money oriented, business oriented people. So even as a 10-year-old, I knew, okay, if I'm working, I'm going to get paid. So I was going home to friends' homes and doing their mum's hair, their sister's hair, their auntie's hair. And I started, my sister had a Saturday job and at a salon in central London. And it was very elite, very black. And it was so inspirational to see these women with so much class and poise and excellence. And it's something that I'd never seen before because, I'd come from Nigeria where people did their hair in markets or they had someone come to their home. So I always said to myself, one day, I'm going to have something like this, but people are not going to leave with their hair straight because that's something I didn't understand. These women would come in with their hair beautifully curly and leave with it straight. And I didn't, and I just like, well, I'm sure I could do something with those curls. I always thought that. So I was working, she got me a job as just a Saturday girl. I think I must have been 11 at the time, sweeping up the floors and picking up, so at that, it was inspiring to me. So I'd always been around excellence when it came to being in the hair industry. Burnett Forbes was the salon. Those ladies really taught me a lot. And so I did have a stint of doing hair in my home, but I always knew that one day I would have a salon space. So what actually escalated, I knew it was going to come later on in my life. I thought it was going to come later on in my life. But what really escalated it was I was headhunted after my first child. I was still doing, clients here and there at home. And I was headhunted for a BBC show after winning the best salon. The irony is I'd won best salon, even though I didn't have a salon at the time. It was just from customers, recommendations that, she's very good. And I ended up being nominated and eventually winning. And so at that point, I didn't even have a salon. I had no walls. So I got headhunted to do BBC Hair. I auditioned. I got onto BBC Hair 2016 and it just blew from then. It was like the I guess, yeah, the what's the word I'm looking for? The exposure then kind of blew me into the way of opening my salon space, which was just such an experience in itself. Honestly, amazing. And I thought, yep, I'd open this salon, I'll have staff and I'd be able to leave them and just run off and do my acting when I needed to, which never happened. And that's why I had to scale down a little bit just before the coronavirus pandemic began. But I'm still hairdressing. I'm just focused on pushing the acting and, who knows, what I'm like. I'm very, things just happen. It just happens like, Uche's just done this,
Yeah.
So I'm very much like I said, I go with my spirit. My spirit was telling me time to scale down, close your doors. Because as much as everything was going really well, I felt like I was giving my clients and my business was getting the best of me and my family was getting the rest of me. And that's something I always said could never happen. And I told Honora that the second that starts happening, I'm closing the salon. No matter how well it's doing, no matter how fantastic the reviews, I don't care. I'm doing that. And I'm so glad that I put in to close my commercial doors at that point, because literally a month later, it was lockdown and I didn't lose anything.
And
I didn't lose anything.
This brings us to you being divinely led, which we kind of touched
100%. Yeah.
Can you just talk a bit about that? Like, what's your understanding of your journey in life and how you co-create?
I grew up, my family are heavily evangelical Christians. I've grown up in a Christian home all my life. That is not where I'm not in that direction now. However, I do not take that foundation for granted. I really believe that going to church as a child got me to connect with my spirit from a very early age, and just to be able to sit and listen. What's your spirit saying? What's your spirit telling you to do? What's the next direction? Even sometimes when I'm walking on the street, I'm like, okay, what direction should I go? And it sounds very simplistic, but we are not one-dimensional. We are spirit. First and foremost, I believe we're spirit. We're mind, and we're so many things: spirit, mind, body, soul. We don't even know where the mind is. We don't know where it's located. So the body for me comes last. So if I've always known that I need to speak to my spirit and know exactly what to do next. Even just what we were talking about with homeschooling, how I contacted you, I was like, right, I was homeschooling my kids, but I felt uncomfortable. A lot of people attribute being uncomfortable as a negative thing. For me, it's a positive thing, because it's like, right, that's my spirit telling me it's time to shift. It's time to turn left or right. Okay, how will I find that turning? Like, where do I go? Who's going to lead me there? What's going to lead me there? Just guide me. And I think for me, the knowing that I needed to do that started from going to church. Even though I don't go now, it was definitely the practice that my parents introduced me to that really got me to explore my spirit. I've evolved since then. I'm still exploring. I definitely believe in God. I definitely believe in a higher energy, a higher source. But I don't see it as something that I'm separate from. I believe I'm connected to it. It's in me. It's part of me. I always use this analogy of a toaster, right? When a toaster's plugged in to the socket, right? It's still a toaster. It functions like there's a source that powers it. Even if you unplug it, it doesn't cease from being a toaster. It's still a toaster, right? So I see myself like, okay, sometimes when I'm not aligned, when I'm unplugged from the wall, it doesn't mean I'm not, a child of God, or I'm not with, I'm not, how can I explain it? It doesn't mean I'm not, I'm any different. It just means that I just need to be plugged in again in order to receive the direction I need to go, in order to be powered up, in order to be switched on and aligned. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's something it's just something that when I feel a bit uneasy, I'm like, right, I just need something. I need God. I need you to show me how to get plugged in again. And I'm very much a people person. And I feel like meeting the amount of people I do in my life also fuels me, also feeds my spirit. I feel like I'm divinely attracted to people that guide me on this trajectory of life. So I'm very, very sensitive about who not that I discriminate, but I feel like I am guided to people. I really do.
Yeah.
And at certain times, like you said, we've seen each other, but we've never. It's only when we were the right time to be plugged into each other that we were. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think people, it works for different ways in different people, but I'm starting to get comfortable in the fact that for me, often with people, I'm just not one of those people who can have everybody around me and so much energy is around me.
Exactly.
I know people who thrive in that situation, do really
I can't
well.
be. Yeah.
I'm just like, you know,
insular.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's a
same
small circle of people as I evolve at a time, but also I will realize that, oh, that person's been there all along. That person, it's so strange, that person's been there all along and only now.
Yeah.
But I trust that. And yeah, I realize that that's kind of the way my spirit does things. Can you just really quickly kind of tell us, because I'm loving this divinely led.
We're rambling. I'm rambling so much.
No, you're not at all. But I just know that this conversation we could have for a very long time. And
yes.
I'm trying to keep it in digestible chunks like the podcast.
Yes.
But could you just tell us quickly about, because when I met you, you was Marlene, and when I met your husband, it was Anthony. You graciously gave back your Western names, or
yes.
And can you just tell us about that and what your name is now?
He did it way before I did, but Onwara, previously Anthony being his first name, Onwara his second name, which is Igbo, a Nigerian Igbo name. I'll give you a brief history of Igbo names, Igbo naming. Like our parents' generation would always make sure they gave their children a Christian, i.e. an English name, because when they were younger, they could not go to school unless they had English names. So it was something that you gave your children. So as we've evolved, as the people we are, the kind of the content we make, we're very much Africa focused in the films we make, and he makes documentaries. He's very much an African historian. We've just evolved and realized, you know what, our names are so special. Why would we be walking around calling ourselves Anthony and Marlene when he has a name like Onwara, which actually translates to mouth, and it actually means mouth of the people, literally. So he just got the, awareness, maybe, I would say 2 years ago. He's like, right, it's time to go back to my original name, Igbo name that was given to me by my father, which is actually what is guiding him now. He is very much the mouth of his people. And for me, Uche Chukwu is my full name, and it was what I was being called in Nigeria. I was being called UC, or Uche Chukwu. And so when I came to the UK, when it was time to go to British school, my mom introduced me as Marlene. Again, being my first name, I'd never used in Nigeria at all. So I had to get used to being called that. And I believe it was during the lockdown, the very first lockdown in 2020, that I just had this sense that I did not want to be called that Marlene anymore. I felt I was changing. I'd been changing, but I felt it was time to go back to God's plan. It means God's plan. And literally, God's plan, Uche Chukwu, means, God's plan. Nothing will ever get in the way of God's plan. You will always be on the track God has for you. And isn't that what I've been searching for all my life, is to be in God's plan for my life? And every time I hear my name Uche, it's like, wow. I actually, if there's something, it ignites in me, especially people who have known me as Marlene. They don't even used to this, but it didn't take long. And it's nice to hear these people who knew me as Marlene calling me Uche. It's like, wow, there's something, I feel different. I feel like it's weird. I'm actually getting way more auditions being Marlene. Being Uche, sorry. I can't even remember. Yeah, being Uche, I'm having way more auditions, and also went on to lock my hair during the lockdown, which I found to be the most natural me. I feel the most natural. I feel the most me I've ever felt in my entire life. Yeah, so that really is it. It's as simple as that. We had an awakening, and it has changed us as performers, as parents, as husband and wife, as people.
For anyone who listened, because you cut out at one bit, but I don't think we need to go back, because I think we kind of jumped up, but the screen froze. We just want to let any listeners know that that wasn't your network, that was ours. And I'm just in love with that, and I love saying your name. I love saying Uche. It's beautiful.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
it feels good. It really does.
So I'm trying to, like, in my head kind of just pull out there's other questions that I want to ask here, but I think we're gonna I just want to ask you, can you imagine yourself at a ripe old age? Can you tell us, I don't know, 86, that's a number that I give other guests. Can you 86 or a ripe old number that feels right to you, and can you tell us how you are feeling? How is Uche feeling? Do you know what she's accomplished in life? Where if she was standing in her favorite spot in the world, where is that?
I would be sitting on a beach in Tanzania, looking out onto the seas. I'm such a water baby. I feel the energy of her when I'm there. I would be sitting out on in my nice old chair, just feeling very content with life, possibly with my grandchild or one of my grandchildren sat on my lap, making me laugh, and drinking something with rum, definitely dark rum in it. And I would be proud of the arts and what I've achieved in performing arts in Africa. It's something that I've always wanted to raise the standard of in my part of the world, and have an influence on. So my school of acting for women will have produced many award winners and would be running on its own, and it would have an alumni to be proud of. My grandchildren will be well taken care of. They will also be free financially and home. My dream to move home to Africa will be accomplished, and we'd be safe. Because that's another thing that is always on my mind, as a mother, just safety. I would have seen a lot. I'll have beautiful grey sister locks by then, down to my buttocks, that I would have, taken care of and styled and loved for all those years. I would have had them. I would have, by then, my maths isn't the best, but 86, how many years would I have had my sister locks by then? I'd say
50, right?
50 years. Yeah. And my husband with his beautiful grey silver fox looking features would just be, making me laugh as well, like probably chasing our granddaughter around and swinging her over his head. And we would be proud of what we've done. We would have exposed so much talent and richness from our beautiful continent and to the world. That's my dream. I
can see it.
Yeah, it's coming.
100% see it, and I've got goosebumps.
Yay!
So, coming back to the age that you are now.
Yes.
What advice would your 86-year-old self, or how old are you now?
37. How expensive I am, darling. I don't
How
believe
expensive,
in getting older. I'm expensive, darling. I'm 37 years expensive.
Yeah. 37 trips around the sun.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give to your younger self, to anyone who's in your journey? It could be your 86-year-old self talking to you now, giving you advice. I want to hear books that you recommend, that you are like, pick up this book you haven't already,
Mm-hmm.
or, you know, a song, it can be anything, or a tip, you know, you say you like
Yes.
to journal. Like, what are the game changers? What have the game changers been?
Game changers have been prioritizing you. Prioritize getting to know you, even in the in the quest for work, in the quest for love, in the quest for wellness. Prioritize yourself. So I would recommend journaling, because that was the quickest way for me to understand who I was. My spirit was speaking to me on paper. And it's every time I feel disconnected from that, remember I'm this toaster analogy, every time I feel like my plug has been taken out, journaling has brought me back to being connected. And I feel that's prioritizing me. Even if it's 10 minutes out of your day, you're prioritizing you, because your spirit will guide you to that love. Your spirit will guide you to that next job, or to that size you want to be, if it's your weight or your body image. Prioritize you when it comes to looking after your children. They're real humans. They only have one childhood. So if you're always angry, always tetchy when you're around them, get some time to yourself, so that when you are with them, they remember you as the loving and nurturing person that you are. And read books and speak written by Black women specifically. Prioritize that, because yes, you can read around and read the Deepak Chopras of this world, but these women will understand your experience way more than anyone else. So read those, prioritize those, speak to people that have what you want. If it is a long-lasting marriage you want, speak to someone around you that has that, a happy one. If it's a happy, long-lasting marriage you want, who identify people in your circle, or even if it's somebody that you don't know, that you've seen online, look at that, get in touch with them and say, what is it? Like, let me just rub off on you a little bit. Don't be scared to ask questions. Because, you know, what's the worst that can happen? You know, they could just not respond. Fine. Go in the other direction. And don't apologize for when, like, with, you know, I feel like sometimes in the past I've walked into rooms, like, just the way I walk in, it's like I'm apologizing for myself. No, walk tall, even if you don't feel like it. Don't apologize for anything in who you are. Try and explore it. If it makes you uncomfortable, it's not a bad thing. If your weight makes you uncomfortable, it's not a bad thing. It might just mean you need to prioritize you. Sit down with yourself. What do I need to do to start enjoying where I am? Eat well. Don't prioritize on what you're eating. What you're putting in your body is what you're giving out to the world. It's your representation of yourself. So eat well, enjoy it. Don't starve yourself. It's another thing. Go to spas, buy yourself flowers, you know, just live well. I don't believe life is short. I hear that saying so much and it angers me, because it's not. I think life is as long as it should be for you. It's you that can make it feel short if you don't enjoy every moment. Dance in your room naked, laugh for no reason. I could go on, you know.
That's beautiful. And
yeah,
definitely what I needed to hear today. This might humour the skeptical listeners, but on the topic of journaling, I got into journaling about 5 years ago, and one of the things that sometimes I actually feel like I channel. I didn't really understand the term of what channeling until I started journaling, and a few pages in, I get to a point where my hand just keeps going.
Yep. Same here.
It's just like I'm like, I didn't know this was there, and I don't want it to stop, because
I've got goosebumps. Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of fell into asking my future self. So I'd journal, picture my future self where she was, and then the hand would, this is where I'd start channeling. She'd be telling me what I needed to do next.
Yes.
And I feel like I've just got this strong relationship with my future self. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is powerful stuff.
Yes. So. Yes. It's, I've totally, I really, it resonates with me, because going back to how I met my husband, I was writing about what I wanted as a job. That's how the journaling began. I was like, what do I want for my future? And then I just started doing this, writing and writing. When I finally, I waited 3 months before I showed him where, because when I met him, there was a pause for journaling then. When I finally met him, when I showed him this book, he was like, oh my God, I had literally described him down to his teeth. And he was like, what? And I honestly, if we only tapped into, even if it's 20% of our power as spiritual beings, there would be no confusion as to what direction we should take next. But we're human, we're in human form. So yes, we do fall off. Yes, we are disconnected. Yes, our plug does fall out every now and again. However, once we do reconnect, we are so powerful. He found that journal recently and looked at it. It's like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. I wrote about how he would treat me, how he would feel about me, what we would do together. Even then, I was not even acting. I wrote that we would work together. We were going to make films together. Make films? I know it's such a stressful process. Why would I even write? I want to be a filmmaker, but I wrote that down. I didn't even know anything about film then. Remember, I hardly watched films until I met him. I wasn't really an avid film watcher. So it's just, you can speak to your future self and get her direction. And sometimes it does come from reading from another fellow Black woman who has a similar character to yourself that can help you to get into that zone as well. So I heavily believe in channeling through journaling. I think it's powerful. It's a powerful tool.
I just want to add that it's not a term that I coined, but when you're saying find people that you can relate to, there's a term called expanders. They are expanders, and it's basic neuroscience. Your brain, if you can relate to someone, whether they look like you or they have a similar life to you, and looking like you is important to be able to relate. Your brain will say, oh, if they can do it, I can do it too. And 100%. It is literally rubbing up on them. It can be reading their book, it can be following their Instagram account, or like you said, it can be reaching out and asking to spend some time. That's exactly what I did in business. I felt like, oh my gosh, I had a baby at 16. I'm from a council estate. Is it realistic, me being successful in business? Found this book just by chance, listened to a podcast where this mixed race woman from West London who had a baby at 17 had this book. And I listened to her book and I cried twice because I could relate to it so much. And then I found out that she was hosting a business retreat like the next month. So I did this retreat.
Yes, you prioritized yourself and invested in yourself. Look at that. Investing.
There, she said she offered to be my mentor.
Look at that.
And she's
I love that.
House author. So
I love that's one thing I wanted to include as well. Don't be afraid to spend money to invest in yourself. I see money, because I have been earning since I was 10 years old. I never feel like, oh my God, I'm scared, I'm not going to have money. No, money, if you're investing in prioritizing it, implanting it, investing in yourself, you will never beg for bread. You will always be rich, even if it's in knowledge. You will always have a way to move forward. So it's so nice to hear that you heard she had a business retreat, and I'm sure you paid for it, right? Yeah, and you went on it, because a lot of people are like, that's money. Everything you do, always, like even stuff that you put on, as a performer, you charge for it, because those people who really want to be there will pay that money and will definitely make sure they eat from that event. They'll get some fruit for inspiration from it. And sometimes when things are free, people take it for granted and they don't learn anything. But literally that saying, put your money where your mouth is the way I prioritize myself as well. I'm like, right, if I really want this, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. So I'm so inspired to hear that, because so many people are so afraid to just get a business coach, shadow someone. They might charge you, so what? You will always eat. You will always get something tangible that will take you to the next level. You know, you spend money to make money. You know, there's all these sayings that, you know, that just float around and I said so loosely are so real. So I'm so inspired because I'm watching you as well in business. You're like trailblazing and just doing all these wonderful things that are inspiring. And I think being in each other's lives has helped me to be like, right, you know, Grace is doing this, she's powering through. I can get, you know, when you feel weak at those times, you see these people around you, you read about their stories, you're like, they can do it. I can do it too. You know, there's nothing stopping me. She has her path. I have my path. You just keep slaying your lane is another book. It's a great book to read. Slaying your lane. You'll never be jealous of anyone when you know the power you have.
And it does, but it feels like power. Like even I will watch you and I'll see you working out on Instagram and I'm pretty sure you're a huge catalyst to my workout routine.
I love it.
Workout and I can see you and I feel like I'm doing it with you.
Yes.
Yes. So yeah.
We're here to inspire each other, girl, and I'm here for it. I'm definitely here for your input too.
Amazing. I knew this was going to be the longest episode that we've done so far. It was, and the longest episode that I've done so far. I knew that was going to be the case, and I'm here for that too.
Yay.
Where can we find you? Where can we support you? Where can we support your upcoming films? Where can we watch you? Let us know, and I'll link them all in the show notes.
Awesome. So our production company, myself and my husband, it's called AEA Films. That's Alpha Echo Alpha Films.com. And I am on Instagram, so you can keep up with me as Uche Abuah. And I'm sure you'll put I'll give you the full link, the full handle as well. Yeah. And yes, and even though my hair salon business is slightly on hold at the moment as I'm transitioning, you can still keep up with Natural Glow at Natural Glow on Instagram, and it's spelled glow is spelled GLOE, which stands for God's Light on Earth.
Beautiful, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's my nickname. My friends called me that when I was younger, so it just became Natural Glow because I'd always been natural.
Wow. So Natural Glow is your business. It's not a franchise. It was something.
No, it's my business. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us, Uche. It was so lovely having this conversation with you. I'm just so honoured to have had you on the show. Thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this episode, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, Grace. Thank you for being the trailblazer that you are, and you know, inspiring me, because just sitting here and speaking to you, I just feel like, yes, I'm powered up, ready to just go and work and do me. So thank you.
Let's go.